Firms Week, and wanted to say thank you so much for joining today's presentation. We're really excited you're all here, able to look at some familiar faces and a few new faces, names that signed in through GoToWebinar. Quick couple of housekeeping items. We're going to record today's session with Sandra. Secondly, I really hope if you attended Tuesday morning session on marketing and recruiting, we had a ton of questions. I hope it's the same today. For those of you who are familiar with National Meet the Firms Week, this is a little bit of an experiment that we're having webinars for firms, and we did just 2 this year. We wanted to get 2 very good ones, and then and see if it was of value to the firms, because a lot of people are in recruiting season. So I told Sandra Wiley earlier today that this is all her fault that we're doing this, but that's a good thing, because Tuesdays was awesome, and Thursdays will be even better. I'm certain of that. Okay, so another quick housekeeping item. You should have on your control panel there a question box where you can type in questions and answers. Or you can type in questions, and I guess Sandra will give the answers. But let's test that out. I'd like you to tell me where you're calling in from today in that box. Make sure everybody knows how to work this thing. And Sandra, I'll you will be able to see this actually. So a couple folks from Houston. We got Boston, Columbia, Maryland. Thank you for calling in. Another Houston, Iowa, Lansing, Michigan, Dallas, Louisville. We have a lot of different cities represented, so thank you for calling. I bet yesterday we had a call with Vanguard, the mutual fund company, and I asked the same question, but this was of college students. And 3 of the students had called in from Honolulu or from the University of Hawaii. So I thought to myself and told them I was jealous of that. All right, so thank you for using that. The reason why I wanted you to test that is I want you to make sure you know how to ask questions from the presentation today. The goal for today, we're talking about building your practice, and we're talking about a skill set critical to building that practice, to being an effective recruiting organization, but to be an effective organization overall, and that's collaboration. And it comes in many forms, but it's a critical skill set, and it's an evolving skill set. And Sandra Wiley, our speaker today, she has a PhD in collaboration, as you'll soon find out, and in fact has written a book recently on the topic. So we're going to talk about how that skill set can be implemented in some of the recruiting tactics. So we're not going to talk about how to go on campus and what schools to pick out and things like that. We're talking about the soft skill here and why it's an important piece of recruiting and retention. If you have not met Sandra before, then you are certainly missing out. Sandra is the Chief Operating Officer of Boomer Consulting in Manhattan, Kansas. And I have a script here I can read about Sandra and Boomer, but I'm just going to tell you a quick story. This is why I think so highly of Sandra and Boomer Consulting. When we were starting College Frog, I was on a phone call a year and a half ago with a firm in Virginia with their director of HR, mid-sized firm. And I was asking about some of their HR practices and about why they were a unique firm. And when she started to tell me, I couldn't believe some of the things I was hearing. They had a very aggressive and a very innovative talent management approach. They had very happy employees, and their retention was off the charts, and they recruited consistently beat Big Four in terms of recruiting. They were doing things that I had heard of from some of the other smaller firms that I talked to, and so I asked, why do you do these types of things? Like, how did this happen? Because I'm not hearing a lot of this feedback from other HR directors. And she goes, we do it because we work with Boomer Consulting, and we do it because we work with Sandra Wiley. So Boomer came in and really focuses on 2 areas of expertise. That's IT and human resources, and has circles or teams of firms who collaborate and work together to achieve, to grow and to achieve certain outcomes, and it's all coordinated through their team. So I'm probably botching a job, the company description, Sandra, and if you want to clean anything up, feel free to. But that story is the reason why I called you and met you in the first place. So I was so blown away by that. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Sandra. Oh, and last thing, Sandra will go for about probably 40 minutes, and please ask questions. I'd like to have a nice conversation around this, and if you don't have any, I certainly will. But Sandra, we thank you so much for being a part of this. We thank you for sponsoring National Meet the Firms Week and for being such a great partner. I am really excited to have you join us this morning, and it's all yours. Thanks again.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sweating a little bit here. That was a great introduction. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who's on the call today, because I know how hard it is to take time out of your day, particularly at this time of year, to figure out what you're going to do to improve your talent and your talent strategies within your firm so that you can recruit better. And I am passionate about this whole collaboration and accountability within firms. I think it is what is missing in some of the greatest firms that we have. And I did spend the last year and a half writing a book about this very topic, and it will release probably within the next 30 days. I will tell you, I'm waffling a little bit. The writing is done. So if anybody out there ever decides to write a book, what will slow you down, it will drive you crazy, is the design of the cover. So that's what we're waiting on, and it will be out soon. So watch for it on our website. You'll see lots of publicity around it when it finally launches. But the reason I'm so excited about it is because exactly what I'm going to talk about today, which is that we work with a lot of the best, in my opinion, the best clients in the world. And they are professional. They are motivated. They want to do things right. They know that they have to change. They know that they have to make changes in order to not only recruit, but then retain that amazing top talent that's out there. So I love this topic, and I am so blown away that Jeff asked me to speak on this topic here, and I'm very honored to be here with you today. So let's get to it. We don't have much time. When we talk about collaboration, what we talk about is the fact that we really do have to change the model of our firms today. Professional services firms will not be able to run the way they always have been in the future. They have to change to this more collaborative model. The collaboration model actually has 3 pillars, and we will talk about what those pillars are. And while you may, I want you to really concentrate on and really laser focus today on the pieces of what I'm talking about that really hit your heart, because that's really what it's all about. It's about culture building, and culture is all about what's at the heart of your firm. What is it that this really looks and feels like? So I'll talk a little bit about some firms that I work with that I believe are starting to get things right. When the book comes out, you will see that most of the book is really about the interviews and the clients that we have out there. It's a real life book. It's not just fiction. It's not just a dreamer book. It's things that are really happening today. Is your organization ready for change? When I talk change management, that's really what I'm talking about. Change is hard. Change is necessary, but change is hard. And we'll talk at the very end about some action steps. And I also want to echo what Jeff said about questions, because I am planning on being done at about 1:15, and that means that we're going to have 15 minutes. And boy, nothing is worse than to sit here in space and not be able to look at you. Because usually if I have an audience in front of me, I can run out and put my arm around somebody and say, all right, so tell me what you think and give me a question, and how is this, and I can facilitate a conversation. Harder to do when you're on a webinar. So let's talk about collaboration. So what in the world is this thing that we talk about when we talk about collaboration? It truly is the way that our top talent that is coming out of college today, and those that are even up to about 30 years old, have been living their life, their entire life. Collaboration is what they are used to. Now, they try to change for us, because oftentimes we don't really allow collaboration right away, and so they try to figure out how to work in our world, thinking that that's the grown-up thing to do. But here's the reality. Most of them are really bringing their collaborative model to the table, and we are all having to kind of learn it from the ground up. So it's a reverse learning that's happening. We are learning from our younger people, and that used to be not so accepted in our world. And today, I think it is more accepted. I think many of the great leaders that I know that are out there, and in firms that are on this call today, the leaders are going, you know what, we don't know all the answers. We are willing to learn. We are willing to change. We just don't know how. Now, I want to give you an example of a story, and this is a young lady that is in college today, and she is coming out of a collaborative college environment, and she is an intern at a small regional firm. And I sat down and had a drink with her the other night, which I love to do. I love to sit down in an environment that is not sitting in their cubicle or sitting in their office at the business, and really just listen to what people have to tell me. And this young lady said, I don't think I'll stay in this firm. And I said, oh my gosh, you're kidding. I said, I thought you loved it. And she said, well, she said, everybody's pointing me toward all my professors are kind of pointing me toward Big Four, and I think that's probably where I'll go. But she said, I got to tell you, I'll do that just to get some experience for a couple of years, but I doubt that I'll even stay in accounting. And I said, really? I said, you are you're top in your class. You are exceptionally smart. You are well-spoken. You are professional. I don't get it. You are exactly the kind of person, if I were running a firm, I would want you. And she laughed and said, well, I think the firm today wants me too. The problem is, she goes, I love people. I love to be involved with people. I love to be out in the community. She said, my dad is a business developer for a trust company. That's what I want to do. So I'm really thinking that I'll probably go into some other career where I can be a business developer. Now, I hope that everybody on this phone is sitting there wanting to kind of be sick to their stomach. That is exactly the kind of person that we're all looking for. Here's what she didn't get. She didn't understand that she could get that in a firm. So we should be talking about that within the firm. The second thing she told me had to do with collaboration. She said, I've been working in teams and in groups of people my entire life. She said, when I was in first grade, they put me in a pod, and I got to grade papers from my little teammates. And she said those teams stayed together all the way. I had teams that I worked within all the way through grade school, middle school, high school, and now into college. There's not one class that I go to where I have to work individually. And she said, Sandra, I'm an intern at this firm now. She said they were so excited because when I walked in the doors and they gave me my internship, they gave me my own cubicle. And they said, we're going to be handing you a lot of work to do. We're so excited about you being there. She goes, I feel lonely. I feel disconnected. I feel like I don't know what they want from me. And I nearly cried because that is exactly the problem that we have in our profession today. So that is one little story. We're going to talk about a few more as we go through this morning. But there are 3 pillars to this whole collaboration model. And as I talk about these 3 pillars, we're going to talk about these in a lot of different ways today. I want you to think about one thing. All progress that you make will start with the ultimate truth in your firm. Truth comes from a place of not feeling like you're being beat up on, not feeling like I'm bagging on you. I want you to feel like, you know what, I want to make changes that will ultimately not only keep the new people coming in, but will even make the rest of us kind of get fired up again and really build a culture that we're proud of. So the 3 pillars that we're talking about are first internal. I believe all real collaboration starts with your team internally. Now, I am not talking about that every single project, every single moment has to be spent with other people. You and I both know that there are certain tasks and certain things we do within the firm we have to do alone, or we have to do individually. And sometimes we even want to do individually. Even our young people want to kind of have some time by themselves. But ultimately, in most situations, in committees that we have, in projects that we're working on, even with our larger clients that have 2 or 3 people working on that particular work together. It's a collaborative group of people that are working together. And I think the more that we implement collaboration from the moment we onboard them, the better chance we have of connecting them and making them feel like they're a part of our team. We cannot wait until they're seasoned. We cannot wait until they take the job. We have to get them involved right away. So I think it starts internally, and by the way, it starts in the top chair of the firm. The person that has to be the most collaborative and the person that has to be the most sensitive and the most much of a cheerleader about collaboration is your partners, and particularly your managing partner. The second piece of collaboration comes from peer organizations, which a lot of people are having struggles with, right? Because that's our competitors. I said peer organization, and somebody said, "Are you talking about our competitors?" And I said, absolutely. There is a certain amount of niche work that each of us can do in our firms that we can do exceptionally well. Now, the firms that are struggling today are those that are trying to do way too much. They're trying to be all things to all people, and they haven't figured out their niche yet. They haven't figured out what makes them best. I'm here to tell you that I think the firms that are being the most successful and the ones that a lot of people are sticking to, they have stickiness within their retention, are those that really have a good sense of who they are, and they are unafraid to go to other firms to work with them to say, look, we do these things, you use us for these things for your clients, we will use you for these other things. So it's really knowing who you are, being very comfortable and confident that you know the best about that particular niche or that service, but somebody else or another firm is somebody you'd work with to help you through other things, that you're sharing work. In one firm that I know about, that's even gone so far as to share talent. It is a very unusual situation. And I'll give them credit for the fact that they truly are doing something very innovative, very outside the box. But they actually are sharing staff. The niches that they and their competitor, if you will, are working in are at different times of the year. And so they staff up for their niche, and they have them busy during a certain part of the year. And then during another part of the year, they're kind of slower. And so they share their staff with another firm that gets really busy during that time of the year. Now, I will tell you, in all disclosure, they're actually now talking about potentially a merger because they're finding that, wait, right now we're just sharing resources. What if we actually became, like, married? Wouldn't that be awesome? So there could be a time when that happens, but the reality is they are two firms that found each other and that put aside the fact that they were competitors in some areas in order to do what was best for their clients. What a great story. Our third is our vendors. At our Talent Development Advantage a few weeks ago, we had about 30 firms sitting in a room, and with those firms, we had some great vendors, College Frog being one of them. I was worried at first that, and this was my old-fashioned, old brain thinking, and I thought to myself, oh, are people not going to talk because the vendors are in the room? Are the vendors trying to just sell them everything? Should we just have the firms in the room and not have the vendors there? And then I said, did the knock in the head, and I said, oh, Sandra, you're the one that preaches this stuff. You're the one that says your vendors are your partners. Let them help you manage your business. Let them be a collaborative part of your firm. Let them be somebody who really helps you run your business better. So the vendors are just that. You should be collaborating with them. You should almost see them as a separate department right there within your firm. They're people that are going to help you provide the value to your talent, to your clients, to your peer organizations. They're the people that are going to kind of be the glue that pulls it all together. So see your vendors as collaborative partners not as someone who is just someone you write a check to, which is what we do sometimes. When you have a culture, and one of the things I always ask people to do is take a step back, and particularly at this time of year, we have a tendency this time of year to start working on our strategic plan for 2014. We start looking at our new initiatives for next year, and we say, what do we need to work on? I want you to think about your culture within your firm. Most people, when I say to them, describe your culture, and I'll just sit back and close my eyes and I'll listen as they describe their culture, there are about 3 or 4 words that pop out of people's mouths, especially if you can get them in an environment where they will tell the truth. Not just do the fluffy marketing statement. They really get down into the depths of what they're made of. Some will talk about, we are an extremely creative group of people. We create new services. We create new marketing campaigns. We create new ways of working with our interns. We are very creative. When I think about our culture, if you are not a big thinker and a creative person, it's hard for you to fit in here. If you are kind of stuck in the old ways of doing things and you won't look forward and visionary, it's tough for you to work here. I love working with firms like that. Some will say we are collaborative. Now, some truly are, and I have seen them, and they are fantastic. Some say collaborative, but when you really look at where they're collaborative, their partner group might work together and be collaborative, but the rest just follow along. That's not truly collaborative. Collaborative means you're collaborative at every level of the firm, and you are both horizontally and vertically collaborating. In other words, it's not about how long you've been at the firm. It's not about the title that you hold. Collaboration happens with every single team member, and it includes everyone from that has CPA behind their name and those that do not. So it's everybody in the firm. Competitive. I have some, and some of you may be these people, that they have a competitive culture. They are competing with their peers. They're competing with their vendors. It's a fight every time they talk to them. They are competing for the talent that is out there. There's competition among the partner group. It is a very competitive, almost negative feeling. And we all know that's one that we have to change. But I'm shocked and sometimes a little saddened by how many people know that's their culture and do nothing to change it. I'm here to tell you it can change. I'm here to tell you you should change it. And if you don't, you will start losing people. If not today, eventually you will. And then there's the last one, which some people will say it's very controlled. It's a very controlled environment, which does not open the door for creative and collaborative cultures that we need. So, and controlled, you can imagine what that is. It's normally one managing partner who is a micromanager who wants his or her finger on every single thing in the firm, and they can't let collaboration happen because they need to be involved in every single group. They can't let creativity happen because it wasn't their idea. They can't let even competitiveness happen because that would threaten kind of their kingdom, and they don't want that to happen. So controlled is another area. So controlling is another piece of what happens within organizations, and again, not a healthy one. So what do you do? How do you get this ball started to have collaboration happen in your firm? Well, I got to tell you, the first thing and the most important thing is embrace the change. Change is horribly important in all of this. You have to make first the changes internally, which means that you have to, and if you are an organization that today doesn't have a lot of collaborative areas that people can work within, they don't have a lot of collaborations happening, I think you go to the people that are the most comfortable with collaboration, and that would be the ones that are probably in their 20s and their 30s. Now, that's not completely true, all right? I hate, and I just read an article on this, I hate labels, hate them. But I also will tell you that the reason I say the age piece of this is because they've been so much a part of it as they've been growing up in school. But there's a lot of people out there that are human resource trained, they are team trained, they are leadership trained to really understand the ability to change and the ability to collaborate. So internally, start a team. Okay, get a team together of 3 or 4 people to really look at this idea of how can we infuse collaboration within our team, within our group. I will tell you that the book I just wrote, and this is not, I don't mean this to be like this infomercial, but I want to tell you this because the book has worksheets that are throughout the book for every chapter. And if you get your group together and if they get a hold of this book, there are actual worksheets that they can work through that will help them build this collaboration model within their firm. They don't need anybody from outside to help them with that. It's simply a workbook that will help them do that. Or if you have someone who's very passionate about getting people engaged in your firm and really getting them connected to the strategies and the success of the future of your firm, put them on this committee. But please don't make this just about the partners. This is really about getting everybody in the firm to change. Now, you might need a partner on there so that you have some wisdom and some knowledge of what it's taken to get you to this point, and you might need to make sure that you have different cross-sections of people so that you can get lots of different adverse interaction. That's a good thing. I like a little bit of bantering. That's cool. But make sure you have a lot of different people on that committee. Peer organizations will come out of that. Once you understand collaboration and you see how great it is working within your firm, now you need to start looking at, so how can we use peer organizations and start collaborating there. Now, I'll tell you that one of the most comfortable and one of the most successful is being a part of some kind of an organization out there. Leading Edge Alliance, Prime Global, there's Moore Stevens North America. There are some amazing entities out there that provide avenues for you to have collaboration with peer firms, and that's a little broader. And it feels a little bit more comfortable because you're not right next door to them. Usually there's some kind of a rule that says, you know, you can't have too many firms from the same area of the country. So that feels a little bit more comfortable. You can certainly start having those peer organizational conversations there. I want you to stretch a little bit and think about who's in my own community that has a business like ours that is doing something different, that we wish we were kind of more like them, or we could refer work to them. That means you're stretching a little farther. You have got to have partner buy-in in that particular pillar, or it will not work. But I think it's a good place to start. And then, of course, your vendors. If you are finding yourself being the negative person, or people in your firm, not you necessarily, but people in your firm, and every time you talk about your vendor, CCH, Thompson, it could be any one of the many, many vendors that are out there, and all you're talking about is how crummy they are or how mad you are at them, you've got to stop. And you've got to call them up. And you've got to develop a relationship just like you would with any other client that you have. And you have to start working on a more collaborative feel with them. Those firms that have found that relationship, they are being far more successful today. So start working on your vendors. So what are your keys to success here? When I look at firms and when I look at what is working and what is not working in those firms, no matter which pillar we're talking about, whether we're talking about the internal, peer organizations, vendors, whoever you're talking about, There are 4 keys that have to be in place in order for that to really work. The first is trust. I can't put enough emphasis on the trust in a firm. First and foremost, trust among the partner level. And if you don't have that, that's where you start working. Then you have to have trust. And I will tell you, I will say that then, of course, then trust permeates throughout the organization. I have very seldom found a firm that if trust is very high at the partner level, you will find trust is high everywhere in the organization. If I go into a firm and I find, we do a survey, or I talk to, or I do some stay interviews with people, and I talk to them about how they're feeling about their firm, if I feel there is very little trust among the staff, I can guarantee you that what I will find is at the partner level that the trust is not high there either. So it always starts with the top. It always starts with the partner group. Accountability is another key to success. Accountability is the scariest word that I believe we have utter out of our mouth, that people feel uncomfortable with at first, but the magic is that if you put a great accountability system in place, if you live the dream of accountability, and if you truly have people that are living the accountability within your firm. So in other words, it's not just performance management. It's truly taking that performance management to a whole new level. In other words, I am really going to hold you accountable, and guess what? I want you to hold me accountable. If I am not doing something I said I would do, somebody needs to call me on it. I want you to do that. When you start having those kind of conversations and those kinds of real interaction and relationship building in a firm, you see magic start to happen on the collaborative front. So accountability is another huge piece of what has to happen, and it has to be a less scary word. I went to a firm in Washington not too long ago, and I did some interviews with the staff, and I said to the very first question I ask is, how do you feel about the word accountability? And I absolutely was blown away, because not just one, but probably 98% of the people I talked to said, bring it on. We love it. It's awesome. It has changed our lives. It has changed our firm. It has changed how I feel about my job, and I love it. I'm not scared of accountability at all. So, but that firm has been working on it for a while. What would your people say? What would they tell me if I was there? The third piece is visioning. I do believe with all of my soul that visioning is important, imperative, an absolute core foundation of collaboration. You have to have a vision of where you're going and what you want to happen if you really want collaboration to happen in your firm. So visioning is a must. Now, visioning is not a fluffy vision statement. I could spend hours, you could spend hours working on this statement that talks about visioning, and here's what I really believe people are doing. They're marketing, and they're creating a marketing statement that they believe will bring in a whole bunch of new clients because they have said these words. But when you ask them, do you live this? Do you really believe this? Do you walk the walk every day? It's not there. In fact, most firms, and this is usually what, I learned this from a great mentor years ago. They said, before you go into a firm, call the receptionist and say, hey, I'm Sandra Wiley. I'm getting ready to come into your firm and do some work. Can you, I know that the firm told me that you guys had a vision for where you're going and what you're doing. Could you just tell me what your vision is for the firm? And I said, oh, that's unfair. I said, that's their director of first impressions. That is their receptionist. That is their administrative assistant. They said, you know what? If the vision isn't felt, if it isn't believed, if it isn't worked by every single person, including that person, then they don't really get it. And I thought, man, that's a pretty strong statement. So visioning. It is not about the vision statement. It's about where you're going to be in the future. Where is the firm going? What do you want when you collaborate together? What's the ultimate objective that you have for them? And what is it that you're trying to accomplish? You have to have that. And the last one, communication. There's not a firm out there that when asked of the staff, what would you improve if you could improve it? Always, number 1 or 2 on the list is communication within the firm. So don't think for 1 minute that that will go away ever. I think everybody's always looking for what can we do next? What can we do better? What can we do to improve communication? It's always going to get better. It's always going to, there's always going to be something new that you could do better, that you could improve on. So communication is something that as you work on the 3 pillars of collaboration, you are going to work on communication in every single one of those. And you should always be asking yourself the question, what could we do better? What could we have communicated more? Are there paradigms that are getting in our way that we say, oh, we can't share that with everybody. We'll just share that with a few people. Well, I can share it with some but not others. That goes back to trust, but it also is a big communication issue. So communication is something that you just have to kind of get your arms around, that it's always going to be there. All right. The next piece about collaboration that I think is very important, it's also something that firms are starting to really talk about and starting to really get their arms around, and that is you have to understand your team, each individual within your team, and you have to really take that information and plug it into how you're going to communicate, how you're going to build the collaborative model within your firm, and how you're going to really use the people you have effectively. Let's go back to that first intern that I was talking about. If someone had really gotten to know her as an intern, they would know that a part of her strength is that she's exceptionally intelligent, off the charts intelligent. They would also know that they would look at her strength and say, she loves people. She wants to be around people. She wants to get to know how to sell. They would also understand that one of her unique abilities is that she loves to speak in public. She loves to do public speaking. It was one of her favorite classes in college, and any time that she is able to get in front of an audience, she loves it. They would understand that accountability is something that drives her. I asked her one question, how do you keep track of your calendar? She pulled out her little electronic day timer. She showed me her schedule. She showed me her task list, and without prompting, showed me her long-term lifetime goal list. Again, I got to just tell you, this girl just blew me away. This young woman who, quite frankly, I'm trying to figure out a way to hire her because she is just amazing. So, but here's the key. I understood her after 5 minutes, maybe 10, of sitting there with her just having a chat. I understood her more than her firm understood her, who had hired her to work as an intern. That is unacceptable. Know your people, not just your interns, but all the people in your firm. Somebody asked me, does that just seems like it takes an awful lot of time and an awful lot of work. Yepper, that's exactly right. It does take a lot of time, and yes, it does take a lot of work, but you know what? It's worth it. A couple of tools that I want to just mention here. Colby Index, we use that at Boomer Consulting to build teams, to look at communication, to look at how, what people's strengths are, and where do they like to work the best. So we like to use Colby. A second one that we use at Boomer Consulting is called StrengthsFinder. StrengthsFinder is a book that you can buy. You can have them read it, and then they can do the test, and that'll tell us about their personality. So personality and instinctive behavior is something that we believe helps put the right people in the right jobs doing the right things. So those are a couple of tools. You may use others. There are lots of them out there. Find the one that you are willing to not just take the test and then put in the drawer, but take the test and use the information. So when I say start your engine, there's a few kind of rules that I think, you have to put your arms around, commit to, put in ink, have people sign it in their blood, whatever you want to do. I think you have to really get your arms around this. First, you've got to have leadership committing to make this work. You can't just have one person that starts it in one little place and expect it to really change your culture. I think it has to be a leadership commitment. You have to start from the inside out. Start with those people internally, and then you can go externally to your clients, to your vendors, to your peer firms. This is about progress, you guys, not perfection. If you started this initiative, if you started really trying to build collaboration in your firm in 2014, it will take you 3 to 5 years before you look around and go, wow, we are a different firm today than we were back in 2014. It does not happen overnight. Please, please, don't even give the illusion to your team that this is something you're going to embark on and that it's going to be all good in a year, because it won't be. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes initiatives, but it is so worth it. And it is great. The more of your team that you get involved and get them excited about it, the better off you will be. You know, this is only the beginning. When we talk about these very first initial steps, this is going to impact everything in your firm. It'll impact the performance and the performance management of your firm. It will impact your clients ultimately, your vendors. It will ultimately impact your compensation model and the technology that you're using. So none of this, there's not any piece of your business that collaboration won't touch if it's done well. And I always like to leave with a few action steps that might be important for you. So leverage your best resources. In other words, get people involved. Encourage group thinking. That doesn't mean that you don't have a leader. Sometimes I think people think groupthink is just that you put a whole bunch of people in a room together and they just brainstorm like crazy. You still need somebody who's going to lead the group and lead the charge. So don't let people just get together just to chat. You want them to have objectives. You want them to have strategies. You want them to have an overall reason for being there. Embrace diversity. Diversity in age, diversity in sex, diversity in color, as much diversity as you can find within your firm. Make sure you're using that. Consider new ways to assess value. Value in the past, we all know, I don't have to mention this too much, has all been about the billable hour. And we all know now, anybody worth their weight in salt, right? They know that value comes from a lot more than just simply billable time. It comes from many, many other things. Replace your learning ladder with a learning lattice. When I say that, many people out there are very good and have a great emphasis and have done a good job of building this ladder that says when you're at this level, to get to the next level, these are what you do. To get to the next level, this is what you do. And ultimately, if you want to be a partner, here are the things that you do to that. And there's this nice little ladder. Here's the problem with the ladder. If you're going up this ladder, the feeling is that if you ever want to take a detour, go to a new niche, go sideways, go backwards. I had a baby, now I need to step out for a little while, then I'll onboard back later. They feel like they're out of the loop and they have to leave. If you show them that this is more of a lattice, that it's this big lattice on the side of a building and you can go up if that's what you choose, but you know what? If you need to take a side trip, if you want to explore other places, if you want to step out and then come back, we are supportive of that, and we have a way for that to happen. Set up a future leader initiative. I believe leadership is huge in our firms today, and leaders they want to be leaders faster. So you need a future leader initiative. There's lots of places out there that can help you with that. There's lots of firms that have already started that. If you want to talk to me about that later, you'll have my email address at the end here. You just let me know. and determine some timelines. Determine an actual plan for making this happen within your firm. All righty, we're at the end. And I believe, oops, I'm just slightly over. Sorry, Jeff. But we are at the end. So questions and anything from the group. So Jeff, what have you got for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 1 minute over, Sandra, so you owe me $25. Is that the rate we agreed to?
It can happen. It can happen.
So let's take the principles that you've talked about and spend a little bit of time talking about recruiting and just identifying talent. So one thing that struck me was the when you talk about knowing your people and that story of your intern. Everyone on this call, every mid-market firm that I talk to is I think one of their biggest common struggles is landing very good candidates who are probably thinking between them and maybe a Big Four opportunity. So I could see this as a strategic opportunity. And I want to know, and there's no perfect answer to this, but like how can we apply getting to know candidates through the recruitment process the way that you might get to know somebody who's already in-house, who's already hired. And I'm going to ask you that question, but before I turn it over to you, I'd like to hear just from people on the call if anyone's doing anything unique in terms of evaluating and getting to know candidates. And at what point in time does anybody do anything sort of like along the process of getting to know? If there's any answers, I'll read them, Sandra, but can you talk about that first?
Sure, that would be great. When I talk to firms out there and I ask them, how do you get to know people, obviously just the interview process itself is probably the most important. And the one thing I hear, and this is not, I don't think this is a new concept, but having your partners, managers, maybe a partner, a manager, maybe even a staff member, go and actually talk to the person and go through the interview process with them. I think the thing I've seen change is that there's a lot more training and teaching to the people that are going to be sitting there having lunch with or doing an interview with these intern candidates. And it's not just one-on-one anymore. It's not sending one recruiter out and having them make the decision. It's having more people do that, but then training them on some really good open-ended behavior-based questions that will pull them, that will get them answers that they want to know about the candidates. The other thing is teach your interviewers, the people that are going to be doing the interview, what they should be looking for. In other words, sometimes we look for, as I think it's unintentional, I don't think this is an intentional thing, but we look for ourselves. We look for people that are like us rather than looking for some diverse kind of feelings, diverse thoughts, and some diverse ways of some things that will bring new ideas to our firm. We have a tendency to look for, like I said, clones of ourselves, and sometimes that doesn't net us new culture, new ways of doing things. And just like this young lady that I talked about, she does not fit the mold of the people that they have working in the firm today. What I found fascinating was when I talked to the managing partner and said, oh my gosh, I went to lunch with this young lady, or I had a drink with this young lady, and my gosh, she was wonderful. Her comment was, yeah, but we just need her to do the work. And I said, think longer term. What do you need her to be if she's going to be a great manager, a great business developer, a great partner someday? And she goes, well, yeah, you're right, but as an intern, I just need her to do the work. She could not see, that managing partner could not see that you're not hiring just for doing the work. You're hiring for the long term. And I think she just needed a little bit of encouragement, training, and help in that direction. So hope that helps.
Yeah, it helps. And I mean, I feel like a lot of firms, and this isn't accounting firms, this is just probably across the board, there's a certain amount of inflexibility. But this is a generation that we're recruiting that, like the example, is really kind of demanding certain flexibility. How do you handle that? So in this case, what could they have done to satisfy what her requirements were to make this work?
Well, one firm that I met in California I thought was doing a really good job of meeting the expectations of the younger person, someone like this young lady. They would actually start putting even interns with a mentor, and they called them sponsors, but they were a mentor. And that mentor, one of their jobs, it wasn't just to meet for lunch with them once a month and kind of go through, so how do you like the firm, and what can I do to help you with your career? What they were actually doing was saying, every month, pick one client that you can take this person with you so they can really see what a partner does in the firm, what a manager does in the firm. And don't just take them to a lunch where you're going to talk about golf. Take them on an engagement where you're actually going to be having a conversation with them about their business. And that was working famously. And here's what the byproduct that came out of that was that they were going, so they would take one of their young people, intern or a staff accountant, they would take them with them on the job, and then what was happening was that client, they would call the client and say, look, I'm going to be bringing one of my top talent younger people with me. If you have someone who also is a top talent young person in your business, please ask them to step in, because I would really like to start mentoring and helping more of these young people to get excited about business. What was happening, they were starting to build their network because the young person from the firm would meet the young person from that business. They would start networking and building a relationship together. Guess what? As the first group, and the hope is that as the first group starts to succeed out and starts doing other things, then the young people are then going to start the relationship and keep the relationship so that long term they keep the client. I thought it was a brilliant, it was kind of a brilliant outcome for what was happening. So
that is, you're right, and it reminded me of one thing that I'll make a comment on about a little bit earlier in the process of, I know mid-market firms who are now bringing in candidates as early as their sophomore year for a little like an overnight trip to the office. So they put up in a hotel, they have some different sessions. One firm in Florida brings the mayor in and talks about why it's a great place to work, and they begin building these relationships very early. I think that's a key critical piece for mid-market firms, is early identification. But I'd like to see firms take it a step further, not only have these leadership events, but work in some of this to get to know the preferences and the things that these students are interested in early. And maybe even, I've heard a couple of instances of people working in projects on those leadership overnights, those leadership 2 days they're in the office, where you give the students a case study, watch them work, watch them actually work in an environment. That's a great way. Your story made me realize that's a great way for them to get to know somebody, is working with them, watching them work.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more thing, that sometimes we think that, and I still think it's a good idea for the partners of the firm to really get to know some of our young people and some of our newer to the profession people and tell their story. But I'm going to give you a little caveat. I don't want them to tell their story just so they can prove to the young person that they're going to have to give up their personal life. They're going to have to make sacrifices. They're going to have to work a gajillion hours, and so that's why they're telling their story. Because it's not. I don't want them to tell the story just to kind of prove a point. I want them to tell their story because some of these partners went through exactly the same kinds of things that our young people are today. How did they manage their time when their kids were little? How did they get the great clients when they were out there working in business development? How did they ultimately get help with learning their job. In other words, where did they go to get their technical training? So I want them to tell their stories. I think that's important. I think it's amazing how many of those young team members really don't have any connection with the senior people, the partners in the firm. And I believe it's, most partners I know will look at you and say, look, we want the same things they do. We want a good quality of life. We want to be able to have a good life balance. We want to do other things besides just work. We don't have all the answers either. And I think that's an important message for them to give to this young group too, is that they don't have all the answers, that they want to listen to them, that they want to be in a partnership with them. And I think that has a sticky message to it, no question.
I think you're right. One of the things I think there's a lot of questions on is about collaborating with competition, and I just wanted to see if you have any comments on this, Sandra. But everybody has the same goal. We're trying to raise the stature, we're going to raise the interest level of the mid-market firms, the regional firms. People are on this phone call relative to the Big Four. We want students and professors to know more. I've heard of a lot of mid-market firms working together to kind of raise their own profile, maybe raise their locations profile, or just the concept of mid-market firms in general. We're seeing this in a lot of different cities. I know one of our customers on the call is in Houston, and we had a great event with a lot of firms and who are all competitive, and a lot of colleges, and trying to get the professors interested in these mid-market firms and vice versa. You gave us that idea with talking about collaborating with competition. Just curious if you have any comments about collaborating with the competition relative to the goal we're talking about right now.
Well, I will tell you, I think that is probably the slowest pillar to get going. I also think it could be one of the most successful and the most important as we go forward, if we can kind of get over ourselves. And I think that's the hardest part. And by the way, I'm not bagging on anybody there, because for me personally, that has been a struggle even in the consulting world, is kind of getting over the get past the competitive and get into more of the let's work together for the good of the whole, the good of the profession, the good of the client, and forget about ourselves for a little bit. One of the things that I have seen happen in several communities now is for individual firms, the small or regional firms or mid-sized regional firms, get together and have conversations with the professors at the colleges, and set up events for their classes, so that they have some guest speakers there. They have maybe an event where they give away awards to the kids that are in the classes, but it is not done by the Big Four. It really is done by these regional firms. It takes a long time to build those relationships within the colleges. It is worth the effort. Those professors are the ones that are pushing people towards certain jobs. And if they know you and they know your firm, and they know that these 4 firms got together and did a really nice event for them, they will be more likely to take some of their, when their people come in for their little, where do I go, who should I talk to, it's going to be you. But you've got to put some time and effort into it to begin with. And instead of trying to be one smaller or mid-sized firm that does that all by yourself, if you have a group of firms that collaboratively go together to the university and say, look, what do you need? What can we provide for you? What can we do that's a little outside the box that you've never done before but you always wish you had? What can we do to help with that? And again, guest lecturers, it could be an event, whatever. But if you do it together, 4 or 5 firms together, I think that's pretty powerful. But again, that means you all have to sit there and play nice in the sandbox together. So I think it can work, though. And I think that's where some power could come in.
So the end of the story, when I mentioned that, our customer who's on the call, he sent me a message and said, and guess what? Because we had that event with the 7 firms in Houston and all the schools in Southeast Texas, we are now getting candidates from schools that would previously only send their candidates to, guess what? The Big Four. Pretty
There you
awesome,
go.
pretty awesome evidence that we can work this together. So,
Absolutely.
I love it. Sandra, thank you so much for doing this. This has been outstanding. Any last thoughts as we wrap up here?
I would just tell everybody that if there is anything specifically that you are doing that we can relate to our clients, or that will make us better, that will give me more ammunition as I take this message to the profession, please let me know. I would love to get to know you, and I would love to hear your stories. Other than that, best of luck to all of you. Go out there and find some amazing people, because they are amazing. I will tell you, I believe, again, from kind of the bottom of my soul, we have some of the best talent in the world out there right now. You just have to find them. So go forth and prosper. Isn't that what they say in Star Trek?
I think I'm impressed that you know that. Sandra, thanks for giving us this insight this morning, and thanks to all of you on the call for being a part of this and contributing, and thanks for being a part of National Meet the Firms Week. So we'll end the recording and the conversation now. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me or Sandra. You see her email right there. Guys, thanks so much, and everybody have a wonderful day. Bye now.